What if getting married involved your future spouse shooting you with an arrow? Or what if, after you said "I do," you and your partner were forbidden from using the bathroom for 3 entire days? Before you think about tying the knot, you're going to want to see the 10 most shocking marriage rules and customs our ancestors actually had to follow. We're not talking about quirky suggestions. These were actual rules that governed one of the most important decisions in a person's life. From the genuinely dangerous to the truly bizarre, these historical marriage traditions are stranger than fiction. So stick around as we count down the rules that will make you see modern marriage in a completely new light. Marriage, for most of us, it's a symbol of love and partnership. It usually involves a ceremony, some vows, and a whole lot of paperwork. But throughout history, getting married wasn't always so straightforward. The rules and customs around it have been shaped by everything from religion and social control to economic need and some very strange superstitions. What was considered a binding union in one century could be a serious crime in the next. Today, we're looking through the historical archives to find the 10 most shocking, unbelievable, and sometimes terrifying marriage customs from around the world. These rules will make you question everything you thought you knew about getting hitched. Kicking off our list is a law that feels disturbingly recent. The ban on interracial marriage. For much of American history, many states had anti-miscegenation laws that made it a criminal offense for people of different races to marry. These weren't just old, dusty rules. They were actively enforced well into the 20th century. As late as 1963, 16 states still had these laws. The most famous case, Loving versus Virginia, involved Richard Loving, a white man, and Mildred Jeter, an African-American woman. They married in Washington, D.C. in 1958 and were arrested when they returned to their home state of Virginia. They were sentenced to a year in prison, which was suspended on the condition that they leave Virginia and not come back together for 25 years. It wasn't until the landmark Supreme Court decision in 1967 that these laws were finally struck down across the country, affirming that the freedom to marry someone of another race was a fundamental right. The fact this was the law for so long is a shocking reminder of how recently basic rights were denied. Can you imagine getting married without a priest, a judge, or even a license? At number 9, we have common law marriage, a practice that was common in medieval Europe and early America. In its simplest form, a couple could be considered legally married just by agreeing to be married, living together and telling the world they were husband and wife. In a time when clergy or government officials were hard to come by, especially on the frontier, this was a practical fix. It was marriage boiled down to its very essence: mutual consent and public reputation. While the Catholic Church started to formalize marriage requirements around 1215, the informal common law approach stuck around for centuries. Today, only a few U.S. states still recognize it, but its history shows a time when your word and your actions were enough to legally bind you to someone for life. It was a system built on trust and community, something that seems incredibly simple compared to today's bureaucracy. Taking our number 9 spot a step further is Scotland's unique version, marriage by habit and repute. This wasn't some ancient, forgotten rule. It was a legally recognized form of marriage in Scotland all the way up until 2006. Let that sink in. In the same year Twitter launched, you could still get legally married in Scotland without any formal ceremony. The law said that if a couple lived together as husband and wife and were generally seen as married by their friends, family, and community, then the law would recognize them as such. Essentially, what your community thought about your relationship could make it legally binding. This came directly from older Scottish legal traditions that valued consent and public knowledge over a church ceremony. While it was practical, it also led to some messy legal fights, especially over inheritance. The thought that your neighbor's gossip could have the power to legally marry you is both fascinating and a little unnerving. At number 7, we have a story of rebellious love, angry fathers, and a legal loophole that turned a small village into a marriage capital. In 1753, England passed Lord Hardwicke's Marriage Act to stop secret marriages. The new law required couples to be at least 21 to marry without their parents' permission. The ceremony had to be done in a church after weeks of public announcements. But here's the twist. This law didn't apply in Scotland. There, all you had to do was declare your love in front of 2 witnesses. And boys as young as 14 and girls as young as 12 could tie the knot. This led to a mad dash to the border. The first village you hit on the main road from London was Gretna Green. and it quickly turned into the go-to spot for young English couples wanting to get married in a hurry. The town's blacksmiths often performed these quick weddings, becoming known as anvil priests. They would strike their anvil to seal the union, the sound ringing out to announce another successful elopement. For over 200 years, Gretna Green was the symbol of romance and rebellion, a place where love could beat the law, just a few miles over the border. Imagine being in a marriage with zero possibility of divorce. That was the reality for centuries across Catholic Europe. Which brings us to number 6. Divorce by annulment only, before civil divorce was a thing. The Catholic Church taught that a valid marriage was a sacrament and unbreakable, lifelong bond. There was no filing for divorce if things went south. The only way out was to get an annulment, which was a declaration that the marriage was never valid to begin with. You might get one if there was a lack of consent, if one person was underage, or if someone had a secret previous marriage. But for most regular people, getting an annulment was a difficult, expensive, and often impossible task. Even after England became Protestant, the legal system kept this structure for a very long time, allowing only 4 legal separations or annulments, not a full divorce with the right to remarry. This rule trapped countless people in unhappy or abusive relationships with no legal way out. While being trapped in one marriage was bad enough, our number 5 spot deals with the crime of having more than one. Bigamy is illegal today, but the historical punishments were on another level. In early 19th century America, states took this crime extremely seriously. For example, an 1819 Illinois law laid out a penalty of 100 to 1,000 lashes on the bare back for bigamy. Some territorial laws, like in Indiana, even had the death penalty on the books for the offense. While it's unlikely these extreme sentences were carried out often, they remained as a terrifying warning. They show a society that was deeply concerned with protecting the legal definition of marriage and was willing to enforce it with incredible severity. The idea of facing a public whipping for what is now often handled in civil court is a truly shocking look into the past. Get ready, because at number 4, things take a strange and dangerous turn. For the Uyghur people, an ethnic group in China, a traditional part of the wedding ceremony involved the groom shooting his bride with a bow and arrow. You heard that right. He had to shoot her not once, but 3 times. Now, before you panic, there's a key detail. The arrows had no arrowheads. Even so, being hit with a blunt arrow would still hurt. After firing the 3 shots, the groom would collect the arrows and break them in half. This symbolic act was meant to show that their love would last forever, and that they would never harm each other again. It was a promise sealed with a pretty aggressive demonstration. This custom is part of a larger, elaborate 2-day ceremony, and is a shocking tradition that mixes symbolism with what we would consider an act of violence. Our number 3 spot goes to a tradition that sounds like it's straight out of an action movie. Bride kidnapping. In several cultures, most famously in Romania, a playful version of this tradition exists where friends kidnap the bride during the wedding reception. The groom then has to rescue her, often by paying a ransom like a round of drinks or performing a funny task, like singing a love song. While it's mostly for fun today, this practice has much darker historical roots. In ancient societies, bride abduction, or raptio, was a real and sometimes legally recognized way of forming a marriage. It was often a violent act where a man would forcibly take a woman from her family. This custom comes from a time when women had little or no say in who they married. The modern, playful version is a fascinating echo of this more brutal past, turning an old act of coercion into a lighthearted wedding game. It's a shocking reminder of how much the meaning of a tradition can change over time. Our number 2 spot deals with the legal age of marriage, which has been shockingly low throughout history. Take 19th century Illinois, for example. The legal age for marriage was 21 for men and 18 for women. But with parental consent, the law allowed boys to marry at 17 and girls to marry at just 14 years old. This wasn't unusual. Similar laws existed across the world and throughout much of American history. For a brief time in Arkansas, between 2007 and 2008, a legal loophole meant there was technically no minimum marriage age with parental consent. In some parts of the world, like Sudan, the law allows girls as young as 10 to be married with the judge's permission. These laws were often driven by shorter life expectancies, economics, and different cultural views of adulthood. But from our modern perspective, the idea of a 14-year-old being legally married is deeply troubling, and shows a stark difference in how childhood and consent were understood. And now, for the number one most shocking and bizarre marriage custom you won't believe is real: the 3-day bathroom ban. Among the Tidong people of Borneo, a region in Indonesia and Malaysia, there is an ancient tradition that newlyweds must follow for their marriage to be lucky. For 3 full days and nights after their wedding, the bride and groom are forbidden from leaving their home and from using the bathroom. They can't urinate, defecate, or bathe for 72 hours. During this intense time, family members watch over the couple, making sure they follow the rule and giving them just tiny amounts of food and drink to make it possible. The Tidong people believe that breaking this taboo will bring terrible luck to the marriage, like infidelity, the early death of their children, or a quick breakup. Successfully getting through this ordeal is thought to guarantee a long, happy, and prosperous marriage. While health experts warn this practice can lead to serious health problems, it stands as a powerful testament to the community's beliefs and is one of the most unbelievable marriage traditions we've ever heard of. From eloping to Scotland to avoid strict English laws, to being forbidden from using a toilet for 3 days, the history of marriage is filled with rules that are hard to believe. These customs show us that how we see marriage today is just one view in a long and incredibly diverse human history. They were products of their time, shaped by practicality, superstition, and social control in ways that can seem completely alien to us now. It really makes you appreciate the freedoms and choices we have today, doesn't it? What do you think? Which of these customs surprised you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If you had fun exploring this wild side of marriage history, give us a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button so you won't miss our next dive into the strange and shocking bits of the past.